I'd like to ask Steve to please speak on the book of Enoch. I'm reading more and more people looking for super special Christian knowledge, and I'd like to know how to best respond.
Read it. Like, seriously, just read it. So for example, I've read the book of Enoch, and when I first started reading it, part of the reason that I did go through and read it is because there are quotes that are attributed to Enoch in the book of Jude and also in the book of 2 Peter. And so there's a passage in verse 14 of Jude that says, Enoch, the seventh from Adam, prophesied about these men also, saying, Behold, the Lord comes with 10,000s of his saints to execute judgment on all, to convict all who are ungodly among them of all their ungodly deeds which they have committed in an ungodly way, and of all the harsh things which ungodly sinners have spoken against him. And so that is something that's common to the book of Enoch, right? And so people have said, well, since the book of Enoch is quoted, then that takes the whole book of Enoch and makes it something that maybe should have been in the Bible, and that there's super spiritual knowledge, as you said, in the book of Enoch. And so maybe we should pay attention to that. And that was something that people in the first century did. I should qualify that. Some people in the first century did. It was something that was popular amongst the Jews at that period of time. But the problem with that is Paul the Apostle quotes some Greek philosophers in Acts chapter 16 when I think it's 16, might be 17, when he's talking to the guys on Mars Hill. And the fact that he quotes their philosophers doesn't mean that he's endorsing everything that these guys had to say. What he's doing is he's endorsing one thing that these guys had to say, and he's using it in his teaching with these guys. And so actually it's Acts chapter 17. He's using it in his teaching with these guys. And so just, the fact that the Bible quotes something doesn't mean that that whole book is something that you need to be paying attention to. And when I say, just read the book of Enoch, and you'll actually see how silly it is. So for example, it talks about, one of the things it does talk about is where giants came from. And so in Genesis chapter 6, there's this whole thing with the sons of God and the daughters of men, and they have children, and these children are called Nephilim, which is translated giants. And these giants were wicked in those days and also afterwards. And so there's this whole thing with giants. Well, the book of Enoch talks about giants, and in First Enoch in chapter 7, it talks about specifically that these angels came into women and that they bore children. The children were giants, and these giants were 3,000 ells tall. 3,000 ells tall. And we don't know for sure what an ell is, maybe at the time of Genesis, and that's always a possibility. But normally an ell is, it corresponds to a cubit, and a cubit is from your elbow to the tip of your middle finger. And so it's about 18 inches. And so you got 3,000 ells, you got somebody who is 4,500 feet tall. And that is nothing but silliness. If you want to say that there's some kind of problem with it, that maybe a zero got tacked on. Well, you got 300. You go from 3,000 to 300, and you still got a dude that's 450 feet tall. And if you want to say, well, maybe it's not 3,000 or 300, maybe it's 30, then you got a guy who is 45 feet tall. And how is that guy coming out of the birth canal? Right? If it's only 3 L's, then you got a guy who's 4.5 feet tall, and he's not a giant, right? And so, it's a silly book, and so it's one of the reasons that besides the fact that it's not something that the Jews ever considered to be Scripture, and it's not something that the church has ever considered to be Scripture. It's spurious, and that's why it's not in Scripture. So I don't oppose reading these things. It's like most times when somebody's talking to me about the supposed lost books of the Bible, I always tell them, just go read them. Just go read them, and you're going to figure out why nobody pays attention to them, because they're frankly dumb in a lot of places. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, Jennifer, thanks for your question. Appreciate you.
It's a good one.
Appreciate you watching the show.